Hi, Tom Brown here with a special edition of Gates of Graceland, and as usual, I am joined here in the living room at Graceland by Angie Marchese, Director of Archives. And you might remember a previous episode of Gates of Graceland when we were here in the living room, and during the tour of the living room, and we were going through some of Elvis's things in the living room here, and Angie was so wonderful to open up this cabinet here, and we found an item in there.
Yes.
You might want to take that and see if that's still there. I have a feeling it might be.
It's still here.
The samurai sword. From an earlier episode, you saw us talking about this, and we wondered about the samurai sword. And a few weeks after the episode went online, someone contacted me, and she said, "My husband, I think, can tell you the story of the samurai sword."
And it has something to do with Saturday Night Live, right?
You hope it does.
I hope it does.
You hope it does. Because how many samurai swords were around in the 70s? She's got this whole thing in her mind that she's put together. But we have a very special guest joining us here at Graceland. Back where he was head of security for Elvis all those years, for 10 years, from 67 to 77, Mr. Dick Grob. First of all,
good to see you, Tom.
With our white gloves on.
White gloves on. Good to see you again. Because we met out in Las Vegas.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Now tell me about this sword.
Well, this looks, now, because I never marked it, but it looks like the same sword that Elvis got. Now, Elvis was upstairs. He was getting ready to go to bed. He was in his pajamas, and I got a call from Harold Lloyd, who was on the gate. I was here as a security guy for that night. And Harold said, "There's a guy down here in uniform that would like to see you." Well, I thought, okay, it's one of my fellow police officers that's come by, because we used policemen in every city we tried to tour in. So I went down to the gate, and here's a guy in a Japanese uniform.
Like a Karate King?
No,
Okay.
a military uniform.
Oh, wow.
And he's obviously an officer because he's elderly and he doesn't speak good English. So I brought him inside the gate, and he's carrying this sword, and I'm a little leery of anybody, with a sword like this. And he said, "I brought this to give to Mr. Presley." And I said, "Well, why?" He said, "Well, I was an officer in the Japanese military during World War II. And I want to apologize to you and to Mr. Presley for us fighting you guys.
Wow.
I'm really sorry about that." Well, that kind of touched me a little bit, And he said, because Mr. Presley studied karate and learned from Mr. Ed Parker, who was a champion in Japan in the karate thing, he said, "I want to give this to Mr. Presley as a token of my appreciation."
Wow.
And I said, "Well, let me go up to the house and see if Elvis is available, because I know he's getting ready to go to bed." So I drove the golf cart back up here, around the back, and came in, went up and talked to Elvis, and he said, "No, I'm in my pajamas. I don't want to have to get dressed to go down there." And I said, "Well, okay." So I went back down, and I told the guy, I said, "Elvis appreciates that, but, he's ready for bed and doesn't have time to get dressed up and come down." I said, "But let me take you in the golf cart." And I took him around Graceland, the grounds here, showed him the various aspects of it, and took him back down to the gate. And he said, "Well, give this to Mr. Presley when he gets up." Well, I kind of opened it up a little bit and felt it, and looks like a real samurai sword to me.
Yeah.
Now, I studied weapons, but not the Japanese, so I really didn't know. So as I come back in, I'm sitting in the kitchen out there with Lottie, who was the cook at duty at that time, and Elvis comes down the back stairs. And he said, is that guy still here?" I said, "No, he left, but here's what he did. Gave you this." Elvis pulls it out.
Oh.
And he starts swinging it around like this. And it's like, because he's into the karate move with a sword, And I said, "Elvis, you're dangerous with that." And I pulled my gun out, and I said, "If you don't put the damn thing down, I'm going to shoot." he walked in here, put it into a drawer, and I'm not sure whether it's the same drawer, and that's the last I ever saw of it.
Wow.
And guess what? I mean, that's where we found it. It's got to be the same drawer.
And this was in late 76 or early 77.
Yeah.
40 years ago, I can't remember the exact date. But when my wife told me about this, and you too on the thing, I said, yeah, you know, I kind of remembered. I said, I'm not sure it's the same sword, maybe but I doubt it changed.
I think it's the same one.
But when Elvis was swinging it around, you know, and he's even getting close to me with it, that's a little scary to me, you know, because I bleed.
We all bleed.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, Dick, that's not the story you wanted it to be, but that
Kind of, sorta. Elvis swinging a sword around.
That's true, but Dick, that's an even more amazing story.
It really is. It's more amazing than I could ever imagine.
I think because it's one of the very few things where somebody from that time period actually came here, still in his uniform, which was apparently well taken care of because it fit him, and wanted to apologize for the big war that caused a lot of people to die around the world.
Right.
And he was, you know, proud of Elvis going and serving his country and doing the military, and wanted to give him something that obviously sometimes meant something to him personally.
And Elvis, one of the first Americans to bring karate from Japan, and wanting to learn karate and using moves in movies that no one had done before.
And that was the whole thing. I mean, he was impressed with Elvis's ability. He said, I've heard Elvis's records and they're very good, but he's into karate.
And karate's about honor and discipline and
very
doing the
much
right
so.
thing.
Yes.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very
Dick,
much
thank
so.
you so much for joining us. This is why I love what I do here with Angie, because there's so many items in this house that have stories, and to find out the story finally of this, it's been a great honor for you to join us here back in the mansion.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to be back here in the mansion, and good to see Angie again. You, I'm not so sure about, Tom, but you know, it's
I'm
good
holding a samurai sword.
You got it. You got it.
I'm
gonna
taking
give that
the
back.
samurai sword.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you.
This
for
has
telling
been
me
a
the story.
special edition of
It's
Gates
not
of
Saturday
Graceland.
Night Live, but it's better.
It's better. It
You
is.
got it.
Exactly.
All right.
Bye.